Hey Sevens, it's Mr. CHEN-KE here. I wanted to make a quick video today walking you guys through the final two film techniques that you'll be learning about this week, and they're lighting and mise-en-scene. Before we jump into the video, I just wanted to remind you guys to please do all of your work in your Film Techniques student work booklet this week, and make sure you click File, Share, and share your student booklet with me. So my email is hch@gwsc.vic.edu.au. So all you need to do is literally type my email into the bar and then click done. And that way I'll be able to see your document and I'll be able to give some feedback and some comments on your work. So let's begin with lighting. Now before you start, make sure you have your English workbooks next to you so you can take some dot-pointed notes as we work our way through these slides. So lighting is a really important film technique because it creates three things: mood, atmosphere, and lighting. So lighting oftentimes is used to tell the audience where to look. So lighting often emphasizes a specific part of the frame or a specific actor or prop, so an object that the actors are using. Lighting also reflects the mental state or the emotions of a character. So the amount, the colour, the harshness of the light often matches the emotions of the character on the screen. And last but not least, lighting defines the genre of film. For example, in horror films, most of the time you're going to notice really dark shadows, dark lighting, dramatic and scary silhouettes. And lighting oftentimes creates atmosphere, and it also evokes a certain emotion in the audience. So for example, the dramatic dark shadows and scary silhouettes in many horror films may be intended to create or evoke fear in the audience. So there are three main types of lighting that we're going to be studying in our unit on Edward Scissorhands: high key lighting, low key lighting, and natural lighting. So the first key type of lighting in films is what we call high key lighting. And high key lighting is a style of film lighting that creates a flat, even range of light in a scene. So when we use high key lighting in movies and when we analyze them, oftentimes the key giveaway of high key lighting is that there are little to no shadows in a frame. So if you look at that picture of Dumbledore in the Harry Potter series, you'll notice that it's very bright. It's very much dominated by white tones and white colours, and there are practically no shadows at all. So a good way to remember high key lighting is that it's always bright, it's got lots of white colours and tones, and there are practically no shadows whenever you see high key lighting. And because of that, high key lighting is often used in scenes to promote and create sort of a positive, uplifting mood. Now, just by looking at that picture, you could probably guess that low-key lighting is the direct opposite of high-key lighting. So low-key lighting is a style of film lighting that creates really harsh shadows, silhouettes, so outlines of characters, and a contrast between light and dark. So whenever we analyse low-key lighting, we want to be looking for scenes that have really dark black tones and lots of shadows. So whereas high-key lighting often is used in really positive, uplifting scenes, low-key lighting is used by directors to create a dramatic mood, as well as a sense of mystery and suspense. The final type of lighting that we're going to be analysing in this unit on Edward Scissorhands is natural lighting. So natural lighting uses light that is already available at whatever location a scene is being filmed at. So directors often consider the time of day before they film a scene. For example, filming during the day as opposed to filming during at night impacts the mood of a scene significantly. Think about that in regards to Edward Scissorhands as well. Oftentimes, Tim Burton films much of the movie and much of the neighbourhood scenes during the day. So it's very bright, and that really bounces off well with the pastel-coloured neighbourhood and houses. Whereas near the end of the movie, when Edward is very much an outsider and is chased out of the neighbourhood, Tim Burton films those sequences or during nighttime. So think about the effect of filming during the day and filming during the night. Perhaps it has something to do with the mood of the scene, and perhaps it also relates to the themes that Tim Burton is trying to convey through the lighting. So colour is really important to analyse in film as well. And oftentimes when we analyse lighting, we often bring in a discussion around colour as well. So colours are often used in movies for their connotations. And connotations is a word that means the ideas and feelings that a certain colour evokes. So darker colours like black and red often suggest emotions like passion, danger, evil. Whereas lighter colours like white often suggest purity and innocence. So Year 7s, let's have a go at our first activity for this guided video lesson. So I'm going to need you to go into your own copy of this week's Google Slides presentation and then head over to the slides in the light blue colour so you can access the links that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But what we're going to do is we're going to analyse lighting and colour by looking at superhero movies. And we're going to do that by looking at Marvel versus DC superhero movies. So it's the age-old debate, right? Some people think Marvel make better superhero movies. Some people are ardent DC fans and they feel like DC make the better superhero movies. So whilst opinions differ, whether you're Team Marvel or Team DC, it's clear that both Marvel and DC films look very different and they feel very different as well. And this has to do predominantly with both superhero franchises' use of lighting and colour. So what I'm going to need you to do is watch the trailers for Thor Ragnarok, which is on slide 45, and Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, which is on slide 46 of the Google Slides presentation. So make sure you have your own copy handy. So this is the trailer for Thor Ragnarok. You can literally just press play. And this is the trailer for Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice. If the embedded YouTube link doesn't work, click on this hyperlink. It will take you to the YouTube webpage where you can watch the trailers. So after you watch the trailers, I want you to answer 3 questions in your student work booklet. What are the differences in lighting and colour between the 2 trailers? How does the lighting and colour of each film trailer create a specific mood? And based on the trailers, which film did you find more appealing and why? So make sure you're answering those questions in your student work booklet under Lesson 3 Lighting. Alright, so feel free to pause this video and have a go at that activity. Once you finish the activity, you can begin playing the video again. Alright, enjoy and have fun. Alrighty, Year 7, so hopefully you enjoyed the activity on lighting, where you had to watch the 2 Marvel and DC trailers and compare how lighting and colour impacts the mood and the visual aesthetics of those movies. So we're going to now move on to our final film technique this week, which is Mise-en-scene. Now, before you start, make sure you have your workbooks next to you and you're taking dot-pointed notes as we work through these slides together. Okay, so mise-en-scene is a French word that means what is in a frame and how these elements are arranged to convey meaning. So when we analyse a film's mise-en-scene, we refer to the following elements: production design, as well as composition and framing. So production design refers to the elements that make up a film's look. So when we analyse a movie's production design, we want to consider 3 things. Firstly, we want to look at the location of the scene. So where is the scene being filmed? What's the physical location in which this scene unfolds? Oftentimes this sets the mood and supports the action. So for example, if we look at Edward Scissorhands, most of the movie is filmed in the suburbs, in that Californian-inspired neighbourhood. We also want to look at the props. So these are the things or the objects that actors are using on the screen. So if you look at that picture of Joyce and the other woman in the neighbourhood in Edward Scissorhands, the cups that they're holding and drinking from could be props. The cigarette that Joyce seems to be smoking could be a prop as well. So objects that are being used on the screen. And last but not least, when we look at production design, we really want to focus on costume and makeup. Now, the costume and the makeup of a character often reflects their personality, their status, and it can also be used to emphasize certain themes. It can also establish the time period in which a film is set. So just by looking at the makeup of those ladies and the costumes, so the clothes that they're wearing, you could probably infer or guess that this movie was inspired or even set in the 1950s. So when we analyse mise-en-scene, another element that we want to look at is composition and framing, which refers to how elements within a frame are positioned and shown to the audience. So when we analyse composition and framing, we want to consider the relationships between the characters in a frame. So more often than not, when we see more than one character in a frame, we're meant to acknowledge their relationship, whether that's a romantic relationship, whether that's a friendship, or whether they're two enemies who display hostility towards each other. So if you look at that picture, which is a frame from, or a still from Black Panther, you've got the two characters, T'Challa and Killmonger, the protagonist and the antagonist, staring each other down. So we automatically know from the composition and the framing of that picture, or that frame, that these two characters probably don't like each other. They're probably enemies of some sort. When we analyse composition and framing, we also want to look at size. So oftentimes, the larger a subject or an object is in a frame, the more important it is to the film. And last but not least, we want to look at balance. So a balanced frame includes elements on the left and right side of the frame. So that picture of T'Challa and Killmonger would be considered a balanced frame. Alright, Year 7s. So, now that we've walked ourselves through lighting and mise-en-scene, it's our time now to analyse both of these film techniques in a scene from Edward Scissorhands. Before we do that though, I wanted to walk you through a worked example. So I'm going to model a scene analysis with you guys based on a scene that I've chosen from the movie. So when we analyse lighting and mise-en-scene in a scene, we want to follow the exact same 4 steps that you've been following in your other scene analysis writing activities this week. So firstly, you want to identify what's actually happening in the scene that you're analysing. Secondly, you want to identify the types of lighting and mise-en-scene elements, such as costume, location, framing, in the scene. So what types of lighting, what mise-en-scene elements can you spot in the scene that you're analysing? Number 3, identify the effect of these lighting and mise-en-scene elements on the audience. And last but not least, number 4, write about and consider the director's message. What is Tim Burton's message? What's he trying to convey to the audience through this scene? So, I'm going to show you guys now a scene from Edward Scissorhands. This is the scene where Peg goes to the abandoned mansion on top of the neighborhood to look for someone to sell her Avon cosmetics to, and in this scene she meets Edward for the first time. So I'm going to play this scene for you guys, so make sure you're watching it, and then I'm going to model an analysis based on this scene with you guys.
I'm sorry to barge in like this, but you don't have any reason to be afraid. Woo! This is some huge house, isn't it? Thank goodness for those aerobics classes. have to hide from me. I'm Peg Boggs. I'm your local Avon representative, and I'm as harmless as cherry pie. Oh my. I can see that I've disturbed you. How stupid of me. I'll just be going now.
Don't go.
What happened to you?
So now that we've watched that scene, remember that when we analyse it, we want to be looking at 4 things. What's happening in the scene? What types of film techniques, so in our case lighting and mise-en-scene elements, can you identify in that scene? What's the effect of those lighting and mise-en-scene elements on the audience? And last but not least, what's the director's message? Okay. So I've modelled and typed up a sample analysis based on those 4 questions in this little box, and I'm going to walk you through it now. Right, so the first thing we want to do when we analyse a scene is to describe what's actually happening in that scene. So I've just written here a short 1 to 2 sentence description of what happens. So I've said Peg enters the mansion to sell Avon cosmetics. There she meets Edward for the first time, who frightens her. Instead of running away, he actually asks her to stay. So nice and simple. Step number 2 is where you have to bring in everything that we've learned so far about film techniques. So everything that we've learned about the different types of lighting in movies, as well as the mise-en-scene elements. So I've written that in this scene, it's mostly low-key lighting. So lots of shadows, lots of dark tones and dark colours. There is a little bit of natural lighting from the broken roof. So the sun does shine through that broken roof a little bit. The location of this scene is in the abandoned mansion, who was owned by the inventor. We know that the inventor dies before the movie begins, so Edward is the only one inhabiting that house. The mansion that we find Edward in is rundown, isolated, and very gothic-like in its style. And costume is another mise-en-scene element. So Peg is dressed in like a pastel purple outfit that was common for women in the 1950s in America. On the flip side though, Edward's wearing like an all black outfit that almost looks like armor. There's little rings, and with those scissors, or those scissor hands that he has, makes it look like he's like going to war or something. Really armor-like, gothic style clothing that Edward is wearing. Number 3, what effect does the lighting in mise-en-scene have on the audience? What is Tim Burton's message? What's he trying to convey to the audience? This is the most important part of any scene analysis. Talking about the effect that the film technique has on the audience, as well as Tim Burton or the director's message. So I've said, dot point number 1, both the lighting and mise-en-scene elements work together to emphasise Edward's status as an outsider. That's the effect or the impact of the lighting and mise-en-scene. So the low-key lighting creates a silhouette of Edward, so an outline of Edward, and shrouds him in the shadows, making the audience, us, view him as a scary and sinister monster. So that's the effect of the low-key lighting. The audience immediately views Edward as different from normal humans like Peg, and may be intrigued by his mysterious nature. Again, that's the effect that these techniques have on us, the audience. And last but not least, the low-key lighting creates a dramatic and suspenseful mood. So, we've described the scene. We've identified the different types of lighting, the different mise-en-scene elements in that scene. We've talked about the effect that the lighting and mise-en-scene has on the audience. And lastly, we've spoken a little bit about the meaning behind this scene, the director's message. So, what do we need to do now? We need to essentially put everything into one paragraph. And I've written a scene analysis paragraph based on these questions or these dot points that we just did. And I've color-coded them based on the different elements that you should include in each scene analysis paragraph. Everything that's coloured in green is what happens in the scene that we just watched and analysed. Everything that's blue refers to the specific lighting and mise-en-scene techniques that we can spot in the scene. Everything that's highlighted in red is the effect that the lighting and mise-en-scene has on the audience. And anything in orange, just the last sentence there, is the meaning Tim Burton is trying to convey or communicate to the audience. In other words, the director's message. So let me read and break down this sample scene analysis paragraph with you guys. So in this scene, the audience is introduced to Edward for the first time through Peg. So a short, descriptive sentence of what happens in this scene. Now, as she makes her way through the dilapidated, which means run down, Gothic-style mansion, it's evident that the building is painted in black and grey colours, connoting death, isolation, and loneliness. So we've identified a technique, colour, and then we've talked about the effect or the impact of that technique. So the black and grey colours connote, make us feel, or we associate black and grey colours with death, isolation, and loneliness. So that's an example of you identifying a technique and then talking a little bit about the impact or the effect of that technique. So when Peg notices Edward hiding in the corner of the upper floor, he is crouching and shrouded in darkness. The only visible part of him are his scissor hands, which are glinting brightly in the shadows. By employing low-key lighting to draw the audience's attention to Edward Scissorhands, Tim Burton highlights his abnormality, so what makes him so different and an outsider, and emphasises his status as an outsider. So there we've highlighted the fact, or we've identified the fact that there's lots of shadows, so low-key lighting, and then in the red there we've talked about the effect that low-key lighting has on the audience. So when you read a scene analysis paragraph and you colour code it, you should be seeing lots of blue followed by red. Lots of blue followed by red. So you should be seeing that blue-red pattern emerging in the paragraph. Let's keep reading. So as Edward emerges from the darkness, he is depicted as a silhouette. The ominous outline of Edward, still blanketed by darkness and whose scissor hands are made deliberately to look like weapons, frightens Peg, who begins to flee. Accordingly, Burton's use of low-key lighting in this scene evokes a sense of fear in the audience, who are positioned to view Edward as a sinister and scary monster. Burton reinforces Edward's outsider status compared to the rest of society through this scene's mise-en-scene, particularly costume, so that's a mise-en-scene element. Peg is dressed in a bright and colourful outfit, typical of women's attire in 1950s America. Conversely, which means on the opposite side, Edward is wearing a black armour-like costume, further displaying his status as an outsider and malevolent creature. Ultimately, and we want to finish off with Tim Burton's message here. What is the message? What's he trying to say to us or show us through this scene? So let's finish off with Tim Burton's message. Ultimately, Burton intends to use the contrast between the characters' costumes to reveal to the audience the stark differences between Edward and the society he is about to enter. Alright, so that's an example of a scene analysis paragraph, and everything in that paragraph was based on the planning that we did on this slide. So it's so important that you follow these 4 steps. Identify what's happening in the scene, and then identify the film techniques, and then speak a little bit or write a little bit about the effect of those techniques on the audience, and then finally finish off with the director's message. So, you've got a task for me now. I want you to open up your copy of the Google Slides presentation this week, and I want you to click on this link, which is going to take you to a scene from Edward Scissorhands. So it's on ClickView. If you can't get onto ClickView, I will post the MP4 version of the movie onto our Google Classroom. All you need to do is follow the timestamps I put up in the comment. So you're going to watch this scene where Edward is coerced by Jim to rob his house, and then you're going to write your own scene analysis paragraph, similar to the one that we just unpacked. Okay? Make sure you're doing this in your Film Techniques student workbooklet. And remember, always start by planning your analysis first. Don't write your paragraph unless you've finished planning your paragraph using these boxes, using these questions. Okie dokie. All right. So, Year 7s, I hope you found today's video helpful. If you do have any questions, please fire me an email or comment on our Google Classroom. Scene analysis is a really difficult style of writing. For most of you guys, it's something new. So don't stress if you're sort of still a little bit uncomfortable with the writing style. We'll have the whole of next week as well as part of week 7 to keep improving our skills and our scene analysis writing capacity before the CAT. So make sure you're doing this activity, and I hope you guys enjoy analysing and watching some scenes from Edward Scissorhands. All right, thanks guys, bye.